Bob is really a guru of the Central Coast, Santa Barbara, Santa Maria area.
Bob definitely taught me by doing that great wines start in the vineyard, and his search for great vineyard sites has been going on since I've known him.
I learned a lot from Bob. He would never let me drive the forklift, so I had to learn to drive the forklift on my own.
He's an incredibly humble guy. And he also is a very generous guy.
He's really kind of a shining example of someone who's kept his integrity and not compromised.
You can't find a single human being to say a bad thing about Bob.
We had lived all over in Europe and Colorado, and he hated to leave Colorado.
When my dad gave us the news that we were moving to Southern California, I actually locked myself in the bathroom and cried.
Took him a while till we bought him a surfboard.
Yeah. It didn't take me long to adapt, just because it was Southern California in the mid-60s, and just a great time to grow up there with all the great music that was coming out.
He never did learn to ride that surfboard.
My first job in the Santinez Valley was managing a small retail wine shop in Los Olivos. I always worked on the weekends, which was fine because that's what you do when you work retail. But the Kinks were coming into town to play a concert at the Santa Barbara Bowl, and I asked my boss, the owner of the store, if I could have a Sunday, a couple months in advance off to go to the show. And he said, "Oh yeah, no problem, I'll cover the store that day for you." And then a couple days before the Sunday, I reminded my boss, "Do you remember, John, that I'm going to this Kinks concert on Sunday?" And he looked at me straight in the eye and said, "It's the opening of dove hunting season, and I'm going dove hunting." And I said, "Well, I'm going to see the Kinks." And he said, "If the store doesn't open on Sunday, you're fired." And I said, "Okay, I'll see you on Monday." And that concert was worth getting fired for. It was a great show. The store was owned by the son of the owner of Zaca Mesa. And that afternoon, his father, Marshall Ream, called me and said, I heard what happened. I'm sorry to hear about this. We'd like to hire you at Zaca Mesa. And it was that job at Zaca Mesa that led me into winemaking. The winemaker there was Ken Brown. The enologist was Adam Tolmack. The assistant winemaker was Jim Clendenin. And I was actually hired as the first tour guide / cellar hand. While I was working at Zaca Mesa, I got the bug to make my own wine. What I wanted to do was utilize their facility while I was still working, and they were amenable to that. And that's how I made my first 2 vintages in 1982 and 1983.
His understanding of cool climate Syrah, which to me is the most important aspect of Syrah in the world, his mastery of warm climate Syrah. He still makes wines of great fruit and balance and purity from warm climate, but his cool climate stuff here at Biennacido is the non plus ultra of New World Syrah. Better than anything in Australia, better than the majority of anything that's grown in California.
Years ago at the Hospice du Rhone, Bob was pouring his older Marsannes and Roussannes, and I remember just thinking, where do you get some of these?
I have to think Bob's style is leading into the future, and apart from his Syrah, his Marsanne and Roussanne, and they are quiet wines. They're delicate wines. When they're young, they tend to be not terribly flashy, but they evolve brilliantly. They develop tremendous complexity when they're old.
We just had a 2010 Grenache. It was just spectacular. We had it with lunch, and my assistant winemaker and all the staff there were drinking that wine, and we're all just going, "This is great. It's just great."
Bob likes to be very hands-on with his winemaking. Bob wants to taste the barrels. He wants to spend the time in the cellar.
He can see the kinds of roots that wine comes from because he has a huge amount of experience.
Bob is detail-oriented. He knows what's going on. He understands logistics in the winemaking world.
Greatness implies a great site, a great interpretation of the site, by the winemaking protagonist, and longevity, how well they've aged, how wonderfully they were crafted in the beginning.
Bob's wines are like Bob. They are what they are, and there's not a lot of artifice involved.
Bob is intelligent, generous of spirit, really fair-minded and balanced, and that reflects in the wines, being appealing and generous, but also really balanced and made in a kind of focused style. So I really do think that his personality is reflected in the delicious wines that he makes.
A lot of winemakers, a lot of friends, their wines are a lot like them. Bob's wines are very restrained, and that's hard to do. Making wines that are restrained and delicate and elegant and age-worthy, that's hard. And Bob's a restrained guy. He's not overly effusive. He's a sweet man.
Beaumont-Clément and Qupe have a very unique situation here, where there are two brands being produced in the same building with separate ownership, and so it basically works because Bob and Jim are very close friends and respect each other in their winemaking efforts.
What's interesting, of course, is when you see him in juxtaposition with Jim Clendenin.
I'm a big asshole, and he's a saint. Let's be real here.
I don't think anybody loves music as much as Bob.
I'm a closet Carpenter's John Denver fan.
I came up here last year looking for something on his desk, and I saw that he had started to write a letter to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He was very upset that Mott the Hoople was not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame yet.
The name Qupe is a Chumash, Native American word for California poppy, and it's pronounced Qupe. I added the accent over the E and gave it my own pronunciation. The Chumash pronunciation sounded like they were clearing their throat. Louisa has taught me to pay more attention to some of the little details.
He's got a great sense of humor. We can laugh and be creative and have some fun and enjoy great wine together. As everybody knows, Bob is a great Dodgers fan.
I do love the Dodgers.
Everyone knows he's a Dodger fan.
Real Dodger fan.
There was the Qupe Wine Club trip from hell. The thought was you get our wine club members to embark and go to a Dodger game with Bob hosting on a very comfortable bus. Bob opened some bottles and there was some food passed around, and lo and behold, the bus breaks down. So they have to wait for the mechanics to come or a new bus, and people are drinking and having a good time, and an hour turns into almost 2, and finally they're on their way. But at this point, people are feeling no pain, and there's still another 1.5 to 2 hours to go. There was one person on the bus who's no longer allowed on wine club trips who got belligerent, and instead of asking to stop and use the restroom was peeing in a bottle. This went on, and they finally arrived at the game, and lo and behold, one of the wine club members got sick and threw up. So we had t-shirts made saying, "I survived the Qupe Wine Club Dodger game."
Bob was, among the handful of founding winemakers that started the Rhone Rangers organization.
In the late 80s, a group of like-minded winemakers from California got together at a restaurant in the Bay Area. It was a very informal gathering, and we decided to hold a tasting.
The Rhone Rangers began as a kind of we'll assemble as needed, like the posse comes together to bring justice into the town. And then it gradually, of course, formalized.
Without the Rhone movement, there would be no Rhone Rangers, and without the Rhone Rangers, there would be no Rhone movement.
As someone who came to the first meeting of the Rhone Rangers, I really want to affirm all the great work that Bob has put in to promote Rhone varietals in America, to promote New World classic Rhone styles that especially in cool climate Syrah, that maybe Bob does better than anyone.
Bob, congratulations on your Lifetime Achievement Award.
Oh, Bob, we're so proud of you.
You are the Lone Ranger, the Clayton Moore of the Rhone Rangers.
Congratulations, Bob.
Bob, job well done.
You're a mensch.
Congratulations, Bob. I love you.